Hey, I don't know if you can hear me this morning or not. Can you hear me? Woo! I may have to yell through this whole thing.
Oh my gosh.
For whatever reason, we showed up this morning and we have gremlins in the PA. They just don't want to work for whatever reason. And so some mics do, some mics don't. If it doesn't work and you can't hear me, I'm happy to hold a handheld, but I really don't want to. Coach, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to talk to you then, just you and I. All right, hey, good morning and welcome. I want to thank the band for working through. It was a bit of a nightmare for them this morning. Give it up for them. So good to have Austin back. Austin's rocking like the full pirate look. He's got like the leg. It looks great. I love it. Hey, I want you to think about how you would answer this question. It's not Christmas until blank. So think about that.
Halloween.
Think about it for just a minute. It's not Christmas until blank. Because here's the deal. The rest of us, normal people, now that we've got Thanksgiving behind us, it's officially Christmas season. We can catch up with weirdos who've been doing it since August, and we can finally celebrate that it is Christmas. And so over the next few weeks, you guys are going to do different things. You're going to celebrate in different ways. And I'm curious for you, what is it that it's not Christmas until blank? Because for some people, it's going to be food related. Like, it's not Christmas until I eat this certain thing. My family, we have Kentucky roots, and so we make bourbon balls, all right? We make whiskey and chocolate. We feed it to our kids. It's awesome. And it's not Christmas until we make bourbon balls. Or for you, maybe it's music. Maybe it's like a song, like, until I hear the king of rock and roll say, Allah. You know, my dad used to play that song on guitar, and he would sing that song, and for me, it's not Christmas until I hear the king of rock and roll sing, Blue, blue, blue Christmas. Or maybe for you, it's a movie. Maybe you don't celebrate Christmas until you watch Buddy the Elf or Clark Griswold or George Bailey save Christmas in one way or another. And there's just something about Christmas time and movies. In fact, one of the last and sweetest memories I have of my grandma is one of the last years before she passed, we watched Christmas Vacation together. She had never seen it before, and she giggled through the whole thing. And my family watched her watch the movie. And it was the sweetest night. And now every time I see Clark Griswold in the Jelly of the Month Club, I just laugh thinking about my grandma laughing at that particular movie. And I think our love for movies is rooted in our love of story. And here at Mission City Church, we exist to help people find and follow Jesus. And Jesus was a masterful storyteller. Jesus used story to teach people about what God was like. And so for the rest of our Sundays this year, for the next 5 weeks, we are going to the movies. All right, that's why you found popcorn when you came in. We're going to spend the next 5 weeks celebrating Christmas at the movies. And we're going to look at 5 different Christmas movies. We're going to talk a little bit about the stories behind them and see exactly what God can teach us in these stories that we all know and that we all love. And fresh out of the gate this morning, I'm going to be honest with you, this first movie is super weird. It's just weird, all right? And I watched it again this week, and I ain't gonna lie, it's still weird. But it has this strange cult-like following. And I'm not sure I get it, but people like this movie. This movie scored a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't understand how or why, but it's written by the famous Hollywood writer by the name of Tim Burton. And he wrote movies like Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands. And in 1993, Tim Burton partnered with the Walt Disney Studio to release The Nightmare Before Christmas. Does anyone like that movie? Really? You guys like that movie? Okay, great. Glad you do. Well, for those of you who've never seen this movie or don't know much about it, it stars Jack Skellington, who is known as the Pumpkin King. And he's the leader of Halloween Town. And this particular town is in charge of all things Halloween. And the day after Halloween is over, Jack comes back to Halloween Town, and Jack is sad because Halloween is over. And Jack knows that deep down there's got to be more to life than just Halloween. And so Jack goes on this long contemplative walk, and he sings this song. And somewhere in the forest, he finds a new land called Christmas. And Jack falls in love with Christmas. And like most men, myself included, Jack thinks he can do a better job of running Christmas than the person running Christmas. And so Jack has Santa Claus kidnapped. And he tries to run Christmas all by himself. Meanwhile, Jack has a love interest named Sally, who, like most women, see a bad idea way before men see a bad idea. And she tries to warn him, this is a terrible idea. But again, Jack ain't trying to hear that. And you can guess the rest of the movie. From there, Jack fails miserably at Christmas, and Santa Claus has to come and save the day. But the reason I wanted to start with this weird little piece of cinema is because the title alone describes how so many people feel when that calendar turns from November to December. And I don't know about you, but every year I feel like I experience that nightmare before Christmas. Because Christmas has a way of sneaking up on us, doesn't it? Like it was just Labor Day like 2 weeks ago. I don't know how we got here. And I know for me, the nightmare before Christmas comes in the anxiety and the stress of all that Christmas can be, particularly when it comes to our finances. Like the first time someone says, hey, blank amount of days till Christmas, I get that pit in my stomach and that lump in my throat, which by the way, there are 28 days till Christmas. If you weren't freaked out, you are now, right? So you just felt it. You just felt it. And I'm not sure how it's all going to work out this year. And let me explain it like this. Let's just pretend that this is your monthly budget. This is your current monthly financial situation right here. This is what you can hold. This is what you can carry. All right? And it's pretty expensive to live in Santa Barbara. And the biggest check I write every month is for my rent. Okay? This should be way bigger, but this is all Amazon has. So I have to have somewhere to live, and you have to have somewhere to live. And so here goes a big piece of your monthly finances. And then it's kind of hard to get around without a vehicle. And this is like my dream car. I don't have this car, but I'd love. This is the only one I can afford. And so cars are expensive. So you're either making payments on a vehicle or you're making payments to repair a vehicle. But either way, you're paying for a vehicle. And I have 4 drivers in my house now, about to be 5. And I feel like all my money goes to vehicles. And then you gotta eat. I mean, you can't not eat, right? You starve if you don't. And a cheeseburger in this town you can't find one for under 20 bucks. And the price of milk and bread seem to be going only one direction. And then finally, just thank you for putting on clothes this morning. You can't just not have clothes on. And in this town, it feels like you need one set of clothes for in the morning and another set of clothes for in the afternoon and then a third set of clothes for the evening because, Santa Barbara. And then out of nowhere, it's like, surprise, it's Christmas, and somehow I have to find a way to fit this on here. And it doesn't fit, right? This is my nightmare before Christmas. There's nowhere for this to go. And this is the anxiety I know I feel, and I think a lot of people feel. And this is the nightmare before Christmas. And this morning I want us to zoom out just a little bit. Because right now you're being bombarded with Black Friday and Cyber Monday and this electronic sale and this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to buy this one thing that we have always wanted for so long. You're being bombarded by all of it right now, and I just want to call a time out and zoom out from all the advertisements that come at us. And I want to remind us of exactly what it is they're trying to sell you. Stuff. Trying to sell you stuff. I mean, it's just stuff, but man, do we love stuff. Last year in 2021, according to one research article I read online, so it has to be true, Americans spent $886 billion on Christmas last year. 886 billion. 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 886 billion The average American will spend $1,000 a piece just on stuff. There's a story by a guy named Mark in the New Testament. And it's a story about Jesus, and he has an encounter with a guy who had a lot of stuff. This guy loved stuff. And if you have a Bible or a Bible app, or you want to follow along on the screen, I'm going to invite you to go to Mark chapter 10. I want us to read this story together, starting in verse 17. Mark 10:17 says, "As Jesus was starting out on his way to Jerusalem, a man came running up to him. He knelt down and he asked, 'Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?' 'Why do you call me good?' Jesus asked. 'Only God is truly good. But to answer your question, you know the commandments. You must not murder. You must not commit adultery. You must not steal. You must not testify falsely. You must not cheat anyone. Honor your father and mother.' 'Teacher,' the man replied, 'I've obeyed all these commandments since I was young.' Looking at the man, Jesus felt genuine love for him. 'There is still one thing you haven't done,' he told him. 'Go and sell all your possessions and give the money to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. And then come follow me.' And at this, the man's face fell, and he went away sad, for he had many possessions." At this time in history, at this particular point in the story, Jesus had done some really incredible things. He had performed miracles, he had healed people, he had fed people, and so people understood that Jesus was different. And so Jesus is approached by a guy who reminds me of our weird little buddy, Jack Skellington. All right, it's a guy who is on a search for something more. A guy who knows this can't be all there is. And so he encounters Jesus and he asks him, he says, "How do I inherit eternal life? I want to live forever." And Mark said this guy had great wealth. And I think the question he is asking is to say, hey, my table is way bigger than everybody else's. And I got way more stuff on my table. And the real question he's asking is, how do I get to keep my table? I really like my table. I've done well for myself. And Jesus, being fully God and fully man at the same time, he knows this guy better than this guy knows himself. And so Jesus knows what he's really asking. And he admits, he says, I'm a good moral person. I follow the rules. I don't lie, I don't cheat, I don't steal, I don't cuss. But man, do I love my stuff. And so Jesus cuts to the heart of the matter. And he does what he always does. He gets right to the point and he just tells the man, there's one thing you haven't done. That thing that has a hold of your life, that thing that is controlling your heart, mind, and emotions, why don't you let it go? Why don't you sell everything that you have? Why don't you sell your table? Give everything you have to the poor and then come follow me. And Mark says the man went away sad. And he couldn't do it. Man, his love for stuff had trumped everything else in his life. And man, it is so easy to read that story and have an opinion about that guy. Because we never see ourselves as that guy. He was a rich young man. And I am only one out of those three things. And here's what I want to remind us this morning. Especially in a town like this. It is so easy to find somebody else that has more than you do. But let me remind you this morning, we are rich. Man, we are rich. Jesus is talking to you, and he's talking to me. The median American household, like somewhere around $71,000, and that places you in the top 4% of the world's earners. And as an individual, not including the whole household, if you make more than $60,000 per year, you are in the top 1% of the world's earners. We are rich. And like I said, it is so easy to find someone in this town that has more than you do. But if you zoom out just a little bit, you're going to find a planet that has way less than we do. And Jesus is talking to you. He's talking to me. We are more like the rich guy in this story than we know. And our culture has this default way of thinking that says we are to love things and use people. I remember I was 10 years old, and all I wanted for Christmas was a new bike. You see, I grew up in the 80s, and anyone who was under 40, we used to do this thing called go outside. It was wild times. You should have been there. But I wanted a new bike so bad. It was pre-electronics. And not only did I want a bike, I wanted a freestyle bike. And not only did I want a freestyle bike, I wanted a GT Pro Performer bike. I begged my mom for that bike. That's the most 80s thing you've ever seen right there, right? Look at that bike. That bike haunted my dreams. All I could think about was that bike. And I begged my mom, and I begged my grandparents, and anyone who would listen to me. I wanted that bike so bad, but I knew how expensive that bike was, and it didn't look good for me. And Christmas morning, 1987, I woke up and came downstairs, looked at the tree, no bike. There were 3 presents under the tree. I got a pack of pajamas, I got a sweatshirt, and I got this little box. And I opened this little box, and inside of the box was a manual for the bike. And I thought it was very sweet, or very, very cruel. But my mom thought it would be fun to wrap the manual, give it to me. But and I love my mom, and I know she's going to watch this later this week. But Mom, I love you. I'm still in therapy over this. My mom locked the bike in the bathroom, not realizing we couldn't get into the bathroom and get the bike out. So now I have the bike of my dreams in my bathroom that we can't get into. And I get mad at everyone who's involved in this. I am ready to chew through the door to get my bike out. And I got so angry. Instead of being patient and grateful, man, I am calling the roll. I'm like, I will kick this door down. I want in there to get the bike. Finally, they took the door off the hinges. It took like 2.5 hours. They finally got the door off the hinges, and I got my bike. Now, why this bike was really, really cool. My 10-year-old immature self never had to learn how to do this. I loved things, and I used people. And no one had to teach me how to do that. It somehow came natural to me. What about you? Anyone ever have to teach you to love things and use people? I heard a pastor say one time, we buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. Our default wiring is to love things and use people. Most of our culture lives this way. No one ever had to teach us how to do this. It's very natural for all of us. But what I love about Jesus is that Jesus introduces an entire new way to exist in the world. A way that is counter to the culture that we live in. And Jesus says that does not have to be true about you. In fact, Jesus told his followers in the book of Matthew, chapter 6, he says, don't store up for yourselves treasures here on earth, where moths eat them and rust destroy them, and where thieves break in and steal. Store your treasures in heaven, where moth and rust cannot destroy, and thieves do not break in and steal. For wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will be also. Wherever your investments are, be them time, be them money, be it your resources, wherever you invest, your heart naturally follows. And Jesus says, I need you to be careful in your acquisition of stuff because A, it's not going to last. And B, wherever your treasure is, the desires of your heart will be right behind it. So Jesus says, how about instead of loving things and using people, what does it look like for us to love people and use things? What does it mean for us to exist a different way in the world than the culture around us, and for us to be open-handed and not have a grip on our things, or better yet, our things have a grip on us. Jesus knows that our hearts and our stuff are connected. And our emotions and our resources are connected. And we can either love things and use people, or we can love people and use things. And Jesus knows that one way of living doesn't need to be taught, but the other does. And it needs to be practiced. And it needs to be learned. And in order to really love people and use things, it's going to take some intentionality on our part. If you want to know how to really love people, invest your money, invest your time, invest your stuff into other people, and watch your heart follow. Jesus is saying you want a different way to exist in the world. You want to change your heart. You want to learn how to really love people. Invest in them. Send your resources toward them, and your heart will follow. And you'll be storing up for yourselves treasures that cannot be taken from you, that will not devalue, that will outlive you. You'll be a part of investing in a legacy. And in a world and a culture full of jack skeletons walking around looking for something more to live for, Jesus says, let's live for other people. Let's learn to love people and use things. So this morning, that whole message is a setup for where we're going for the city. I mentioned this last week, and I did a terrible job of it, so I'm going to try to do it again a little clearer. About 3 weeks ago, we had a meeting with Diane Martinez from Immigrant Hope. And last year, you guys crushed it. We partnered with them. And what they asked for was stockings. They wanted to be able to give immigrant families in the community of Santa Barbara stockings for their kids. And I know that's more stuff. But the heart behind it is a gesture of you matter. And I see you. And I'm for you. And I'm glad you're here. And so we put that challenge in front of you all last year. I asked for 150. You guys brought 162. Diane said, I think we can do more. I said, how many do you need? She goes, well, what if? She goes, I need 260. But I could probably try to find another church to help. I said, I don't want you to call another church. I said, I want it. Hannah looked at me like I was crazy. But I was like, I think we can do this. 262 at $25 a piece is not cheap. And so she kind of kept going, and she was talking about other things, and she's trying to involve other churches. And so I'm sitting here wrestling with this challenge. I'm like, did I just commit us to something I don't think we can do? And for whatever reason, God said, there's more. I said, well, what else do you need? And she said, well, we'd love to feed them as well. We'd love to give them a gift card for groceries. She said, I'm looking for $10,000. I said, I don't have $10,000, but I have 5. I don't have 5. I told her I did. And then she said, okay, well, there's also this issue with domestic violence among immigrant women, because maybe they don't have proper citizenship, so they're scared to call the police. And we're really trying to put a class together for them. I said, how much is that? And she said $3,000. And I said, okay. So ultimately, here's what I've committed us to. You're welcome. What? 262 stockings and $8,000, of which we don't have. But in January of 2022, we started praying Ephesians 3:20. We all prayed this 11 months ago. Now to the God who can do more than we can ask for or imagine. And I believe that God wants to do something really special in us and through us, and allow us to invest our time, our treasure, our money into other people and watch our heart follow. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to think. I'm going to give you a few minutes to pray. I'm going to invite Austin to come up, and you'll play for us just for a little bit. I want you to pray about what you can do and what you're willing to do. And here's what I would love for you to consider. Some of you can make this happen on your own. I believe that. And I'm not asking you to do that. But I am asking you to pray about what God would lead you to. Because we have the money in the bank to do it. We're just going to send them the money. We're not going to fail at this. The problem is, it's just really not in the budget. And so I'm asking you to help us, to be there with us. And so a couple of things. Number one, this is a great opportunity for you to invite people into the culture at Mission City. Take a stocking and invite somebody else to fill it up. It's $25. Like I said, invite one of your friends to come fill one of those up. And if your friends don't want to give toys to immigrant kids, find better friends. But I want to invite you to take one and invite other people into it. And I'm going to invite you to take one for yourself. Maybe you take 2 for yourself. Maybe you take 4 for yourself. I don't know. But I need your help. I believe we can do this. And I want to make a difference in something that will outlast us. To a community of people that we say, hey, we see you. We're for you. We believe in you. You're not alone. You're loved. So I'm going to pray for us. We're going to do 2 things for the rest of our time. Number 1, we're going to take communion together. Because I want to remind you first and foremost of John 3:16 that said, God so loved you that he gave. And we are made in the image and likeness of God, and it is in us. We look like him when we are generous and we give. And so you get to hold in your hands the elements of Jesus and the price of God's great love. So I'm going to invite the team to come pass communion now. And I want you to just take a few minutes to remind yourself that God loved you so much that he gave. God, thank you for Jesus. Thank you for this gift. We just want to sit in it now. We want to celebrate Jesus. You did not leave us to ourselves. You did not leave us alone. You met us where we were. While we were still sinners, God, you sent Jesus on our behalf. You gave. And so for the next few minutes, we want to celebrate your generosity.